Hello and welcome. This is the Senior Estate Concierge Show, and today I have with me the lovely Caroline Ortego. She's an elder care attorney, and we're going to be talking about what the family needs, not just the person that needs the information, but the whole family. And so here we go. Hello, Caroline.
Good morning. Hi, how are you, Marion?
Oh, fantastic. I am really doing well today. So tell us, how did you end up here today?
Well, I'm a member of Senior Estate Concierge, where I met you, Marion, and Bill, and some other wonderful people that serve the needs of seniors and their families. That's how I arrived at this interview.
Yes, yes, thank you. I really, really like talking about the senior estate concierge because it helps so many people. And when I talk about people, I'm talking about the family, the caregivers, the neighbors, the everybody that's involved in the person that we're all trying to help. And so when someone comes to the senior estate concierge and they say, we need somebody to help us with a legal problem. My brother's trying to hone in on, grandma's stuff, and she's not even, she's not even ready to kick the bucket yet. What do we do? Well, the first thing I think of is an elder care attorney, which is what you do. And that is just one portion of it, right? They need other things.
Right.
So that's what I've heard you say. I've heard you say some good things about the senior estate concierge because you want to be able to help the family with other things than just the law. So, can you tell me a little bit about your experience with the group itself, the senior estate concierge, and the founder, Bill Graff?
Sure. So, the first thing that I do when I'm talking to a family that has an elderly loved one, and that person is going through some changes and they need a place to land, usually the very first place that I start looking at with this family is, I know you have all these things you want to do, but where are they going to live now? And is it going to be a different place in 3 months or 6 months from now? And so that's what's wonderful about Senior Estate Concierge. I'm not a housing specialist. I'm not a medical professional. I can't make determinations about your family member and what their capabilities and the best fit for them. So for me, finding Senior Estate Concierge, the best thing has been finding these professionals in a variety of areas, but especially those housing locators, and also the medical professionals that can help us evaluate where is the best place for mom or dad, because I can't do it. Often the family is not clear on what mom's capabilities are and what her, they have a bias sometimes. They see their mom or dad in their mind 30 years ago, just like our parents see us in their minds 30 years ago. So you really need that objective third party who's a trained professional. And what's wonderful about this group is that we have a variety of people that work in that area. And if they're in a different part of town and they can't help, they can also find somebody who can help the family. So that's a first stop for me, that before I joined this group, I just didn't have a reliable group of those professionals that I could call. And now I do, and my families that I work with do as well.
I love getting those phone calls because I know that when they call, and the number is scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now, but it's also down below the video. So if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, just know that there is a description with all the information to get a hold of Caroline or to get a hold of the senior estate concierge, because we want to reach out to other caregiver, not just caregivers, but also the people who give service to the seniors and their families, because we're looking for those people. We're expanding. We're looking for those people who have the heart-centered, giving nature that can help the seniors and their family. And I keep saying that, and I hear myself saying that because it's so true. It's not just the senior that needs help. It's the whole family. It's the community. And we're all in this together. And so that's one of the reasons I just absolutely love this, because I get to meet people like Caroline and her partner, who's going to be on the show in a couple weeks. So you'll get to meet her.
Yes.
That's Jocelyn Urech, right?
Yes, Joycelyn Urech is my partner.
Jocelyn, sorry.
That's okay.
I should think about that. Joycelyn. Yeah, there you go. There we go. I get to meet people like you, and I get to share that information with the people that call into our number, which is 713 401 9750. And so whether they go to the website or they call us on the phone and they have a question or a problem, I want to be able to help them. And then I want to be able to follow up with them to make sure that they got what they needed. And everybody's so surprised that our service is free. Now, I do have to explain sometimes that not all the services are free, but our service, showing you the people that we know that are good, kind, caring people, that service is free to turn them on to people like you. That's what's free. And so it doesn't matter if they call me every week with a new problem. I'm going to help them find a solution. And I love that. All right, so let's dive in, Caroline. Let's dive into the question that most people come to you for. What is it that their problem, what's the biggest problem that people come to you for?
When I'm helping the families of seniors, the biggest question is just, where do I start? How do I get going? They're very overwhelmed by all the information, all the different programs coming at them, and all the different options they have. And now that we have the baby boom generation going into this phase of life, there's all these new service providers popping up all the time. And it's very difficult to sort out if you're the family. And it's a learning journey, because it's not something, you love your parents. You're not going to close your eyes and just pick somebody off the internet. You really need to figure out where to start and who can I trust. And it's a very challenging experience. So like I said, usually the first question is, what is the plan? And if you don't have one, let's start knocking that out. Let's start getting that together. And these are some professionals you can contact that I trust, because I work with them through Senior Estate Concierge. These are some people that can help you get that plan together. And it's going to be a team approach. It's not a one-stop shop where we have one person we contact, we spend 30 minutes on the phone, and the answer is there. It's not going to be like that. So that's really the biggest question people have, is where to start. And as I've said, I think it's usually that plan of what's going to happen. And that for me and my services, my question is, what legal documents do we have in place so that once you have that plan, you can actually carry it out? What is the mental status of this person you're trying to help? Are they in a place where they can sign a really good power of attorney so that if they lose capacity in this process, they have somebody who can take over easily and quickly? That's a really key question. And that's part of that plan, is if we do know what the plan is, now that we've established it, let's make sure we can carry it out without having to go more expensive routes. For instance, guardianship. That's where you can end up. And so we try to head that off and make sure that we do everything we can to prepare the family to save money and not have to go that direction, because it's not just money, but it's also time. And when you don't have someone in place to make decisions for that loved one, and they can't make them for themselves, there are time lags that occur, and that can affect finances. It can also help it can also affect the medical condition of that person. And if you have siblings that are not getting along and they can't agree, that can make things even worse. So that's where we usually start. Is
okay, I have a serious question that I'm sure you run into all the time, and you briefly discussed it here, and that is, what if their mental capacity is not right? What if they don't understand what you're saying? What's the family to do? How do you handle that?
Well, the first thing we do is say, go look through the paperwork, see if we already have a power of attorney that can be used, because sometimes they already have something that's been executed and we can utilize that first. So let's look at that first. And then let's see what alternatives are available. Maybe we don't need a full power of attorney to do everything that we need to do. So we just strategize. It's a very customized situation that we go family by family. And capacity, it's a moving target. It's not always.
I know that's true.
And I've known from experience with some people, you can meet with them in the morning and they're much more capable of understanding you than if you meet with them at 5 p.m. So that's just something that our firm is aware of, and we're always learning from presentations through the Senior Estate Concierge, for example, about older people and the challenges they're facing with capacity. And it's just something we're constantly trying to make ourselves more aware of.
I can understand that. I'm the manager for a lady with Alzheimer's, and it depends on what she's eating. It's depending on what medication they have given her. There are different times of the day that you just don't even want to, be around them because they're agitated or whatever. There's that sundowners. That's a real thing. Okay.
That term, exactly.
That's a real thing.
Exactly.
I think you're right. Mornings are best.
Yeah, and we've had some presentations on nutrition through Senior Estate Concierge, different people that are able to do blood panels and get recommendations for nutritional improvements. Sometimes that's a really great place to start. My mother works in psych nursing. My mother's a psychiatric nurse at a psychiatric unit in a hospital. And she said the first thing we do when we get a new patient is we do a complete blood panel to see if we can adjust some of those nutrient deficiencies, if they have any, that will improve their brain functioning. So, I don't want to say it's black and white because it's not. What we're learning about capacity is there's a lot more to know about that area. And it's not just me sitting at a table evaluating someone. We need medical professionals as well.
Oh, absolutely. This is a deep subject. And when you throw in siblings that are fighting over things and where they're living, that could be a big factor. If they're not in the appropriate living condition, it can make a big difference. I've learned so much since I joined the Senior Estate Concierge myself. I've learned that there's so many factors that you can't just go in with a template and say, okay, is this? No, you have to say, oh, well, if this is happening, then we might need to look at that. You really have to think, and you really have to care about the person and the family. It's an interesting thing for you to do as an attorney, I'm sure, because you're trying to help. If there is some fighting between the family members, I've even noticed it with my own family. There's differences of opinion. So who wins? You probably have to have that gavel, right? And say, okay, people, let's get on this page.
It's a case-by-case situation, and usually one family member is my primary contact. I want to talk to the person who is the agent under the power of attorney. That's the person because that's who my contact needs to be. I can speak to other people, but I can't reveal information. I'm going to have a clear client in this situation, and I don't get to make decisions. Ideally, I'm able to present some factors to the family and they start getting on board about certain things. And usually that will happen because most of these people care about the loved one, and that's really ultimately what it is. And they will get behind a plan. And I think that's part of why it's so important to have a team approach and get different professionals and get a plan in place, because some of that animosity can be reduced by clarifying the issues, getting a plan in place that everybody can agree with. And then you start having people getting along. A lot of times they're afraid of giving up control over mom or dad, or afraid that this person's going to make the wrong decision. But if we can clarify what those decisions are, we might be able to come to some resolution before we get into some big fight over mom or dad, and I think that's the best way to approach that.
I have a question about when you said, they come to you usually in a panic, or they don't know where to start. When is the appropriate time to reach out to you?
I'm going to make the light go off again, turn back on. Sorry, we have these timing lights, and
I understand.
Well, it's not going to turn on, but
can you ask me I can see you fine.
Can you ask me the question one more time? I was a little distracted.
Oh, absolutely. I know that when people come and they call me or they come to the website, they're usually need something right now. So right. My question to you is, when is the appropriate time to come to you before we're going to panic, before we have, with the needs?
Oh, I would say when a family member, I mean, I feel like everybody really needs to do this planning regardless of what age they are. But if you're the adult child and your parents are getting over 65, I think you need to start talking to them about, have you seen an attorney? Have you got powers of attorney in place? Educate yourself about what the different documents are that can help your family down the road. And it is a very awkward and difficult conversation sometimes. And that's why you start early, because maybe you start in year one and you don't really convince your family to do something until year three. But I think doing that as soon as possible is important. And then revisiting those documents, because what I've seen in my experience is that financial powers of attorney, we call them statutory durable powers of attorney in Texas. The law says those are good indefinitely, but when you bring them to a financial institution and they're more than 5 years old, they're really not going to like that, and they will give you trouble, and they may not accept it. So once you get the initial ones in place, you want to start kind of renewing, especially that document every 3 to 5 years, making sure the names of the agents that you've appointed are correct, all of your choices are still the same, and just having that newly executed document is going to prevent a problem down the road.
That's funny because I was gonna go and get my will updated and everything, and I looked at my old will, and I'm like, oh, if I would have died, oh no,
None of these people are around
that
anymore yet.
that person would have gotten everything. Oh no, yeah.
Right.
So every 5 years, you should take a look at what you have, and maybe bring it to an attorney and say, hey, can you look at this and make sure everything is good? That's a great idea. Thank you for that. That'll give me some things to think about. I'll put it on my calendar.
Sounds good.
It's true. I mean, everybody knows somebody whose father or mother passed away, or the one spouse passed away and left everything to the other spouse, and the other spouse didn't even have a will. And so it's like, it's always a mess. It must be very hard for you to see a mess come in when it could have been prevented.
Oh, absolutely. We do a little bit of probate litigation as well, which means after someone passes away, we admit the will to probate, or if they didn't have a will, we have to do an intestate probate, which involves notifying creditors. And very often one family member says, oh, well, I thought that my loved one wanted me to have this. And I have to say, well, we don't have a will, so we're going to have to go by what the state of Texas says. And they said, oh, well, but all this expense and all this could have been avoided. And I'm going to have to share this with another relative that I know my parent would have wanted. And I say, well, I'm so sorry, but yeah, it really does make me sad because it causes a lot of expense. And sometimes that can be really expensive, for an estate that's relatively small. And I hate that. And so I think just getting a relatively inexpensive fix now by just spelling those things out and getting original wills would be fantastic, and getting those powers of attorney to avoid problems in the future.
Okay. So now we've kind of talked a little bit about, when we should see you and some of the problems that could crop up. What are some of the things that we don't think about that you might experience and that you could share with us? I mean, we don't know what we don't know.
Right. Well, one area that a lot of people don't know about that I'd love for people to be more aware of is that if your family member does need long-term skilled nursing care.
Okay, here we go.
That's an area of planning that is very uncomfortable for people because it takes the acknowledgement that there's a high likelihood after you're 75 that you're going to need skilled nursing care at some point. And I've talked with clients about this before, and it's something people really don't like to think about because it's just too grim. But the reality is, if you're an adult child and your parent is at that place and they don't have long-term care insurance, you cannot assume that the government's going to take care of this easily. Long-term skilled nursing care comes under the Medicaid program, not Medicare. Medicare is something that is not a needs-based program. That is based on you've put into the system, you get to, if you're over 65, you're going to get to benefit from Medicare. It does cover some costs. It does not cover long-term skilled nursing care. That is something that is a needs-based program, meaning you have to qualify financially. And when you look online and you see what those criteria are, the asset limit is $2,000 per person. That's extremely low. What I know as an elder law and Medicaid planning attorney is that that is one thing, but we look at all of the non-countable assets, and an asset under Medicaid is not the same thing as asset in real life. So knowing the difference is something we help our clients with all the time.
Yeah, you're talking Greek to me now. What does that mean?
It means, for example, if I'm going to apply for Medicaid, certain things are not going to be counted as assets against me. For instance, my house. My house is not going to be a countable asset. So my house could be worth, there is a limit on that value that won't be counted. And I want to say it's over $600,000. So I can have a house that's worth under $600,000, and that is not going to count that's not going to count as an asset in my Medicaid application.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
There's a lot of strategies that we can employ.
Yeah.
But the question is, when do we employ those strategies to shelter assets and to plan for Medicaid longer term? We can plan in advance, and we can do a lot more to protect assets to be inherited by the future or the next generation. Or we can be doing emergency Medicaid planning, which is mom needs to go into skilled nursing right now. And do we have to spend down to $2,000? Well, the answer is possibly, but most likely we can do things to make that a softer hit, and so that it doesn't impact the family and impact that individual as harshly. So it's very customized. It really depends on the exact person and their asset profile when you're doing this planning, whether it's ahead of time or at the time of need. And that's something I would love for people to be aware of, is just go consult an attorney if you're facing that decision, so that you can find out what your options are. That is really the main thing. And a lot of times it's going to be the adult kids who are more able to face those decisions than the parents are, because they're experiencing it, and it's a very scary thing for an older person to deal with and to face. So it may be that it's the children who are investigating those options, but you really have to even be aware that it's a thing. That's that thing where you say, what do we not know that we don't know? And I think that Medicaid planning is the thing that nobody knows about.
Have you ever run into a situation where the adult parents need to get divorced in order to protect their assets?
That was a very popular strategy in Medicaid planning in the past. And I have seen that happen, not in my clients, but I have heard stories, say in Louisiana, where I'm from, my mom will tell me stories about her friends, and this is what they're doing. Medicaid planning differs state to state. So in Texas, there are a lot of things that we can do for spouses so that they don't have to get divorced, and they can still do this Medicaid planning. Some of it has to do with recharacterizing assets and making them income, because there's fewer limits on income for the surviving, or not for the surviving spouse, but for the non-institutionalized spouse. So I have not actually helped anybody that my recommendation was divorce, because there's a lot available that does not involve that. And I think that it has been an evolution in the law over time and in the strategies available, that is not something that.
Yeah, that's pretty sad when a family has to get divorced in order to protect the spouse.
Yeah, that's not something that we recommend.
Right. Oh, that's good. Okay. So I have a very odd question, and for those of you who are watching this program or listening to our podcast, you might be laughing as you hear me ask this question, but I think it is relevant. Okay. So let's say mom and dad have always saved their money to go on trips, but they didn't get to because of some problem. Maybe the kids, were ill or something happened and they couldn't go. Okay. So they decide to buy a motorhome and travel. Okay. how does that affect everything if they're in another state or another country, or they're traveling and they're not in that state? Because you mentioned, each state has their own things. So what happens if something goes wrong when they're traveling?
That's a really good question. I haven't actually encountered that with anybody, but I have had that question before. For instance, I have a relative who lives primarily in 2 different states in the US, and then she also lives overseas throughout the year. So she kind of travels around. My advice to her was, we know what those states are and what that country is. I would get the incapacity planning done for those 2 states and that country where you are primarily. I can only assume that so a lot of these rules are going to be similar. It's going to be things like a notarized signature on this power of attorney, witnesses on these documents, witnesses, notarized powers of attorney, things like that. I think for somebody who's traveling a lot, I would do the utmost requirements rather than the least requirements. So the least requirements, like in Texas, might be a notarized signature on a power of attorney. I would say for somebody that I know is traveling, let's do a notarized signature and 2 witnesses and have them notarized. We'll do the utmost that we can do. We'll do the highest level in case we're in a state that requires additional proofs. We have all the proofs right there. Yeah. So that's the way I would problem solve it. But is it foolproof?
No.
No, I mean,
you need to drive 10 more miles to the state line over there.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Oh, well, this has been a wonderful time to really talk to you about some of the problems and the issues and some of the strengths that families can have just by calling you, just by scheduling some time to talk about the options that are coming up. I know for me, I am 64, and so I'm a senior, and I'm getting ready to go on Medicare. And, all of a sudden, my life is going to change, right? You never think you're going to get here. So the time is now. The time is now to start planning for you and your family. And so, Caroline, I'm going to recommend that everybody at least gives you a call and schedules some time to talk to you about their family and their situation. Because I'm sure, as a third party looking down into their family and their issues, you can foresee some of the things that they could take care of.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so I do have down below on the screen, you're going to see the phone number that you're going to call and the website that you can go to. And remember, down below each video is a description with all the links that you're going to need. I would take the time, don't put it off. I would take the time to do it right now, because as you can tell, Caroline is wonderful. She's friendly. She's not going to bite you. Just call her and talk to her about scheduling some time. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you. This was really fun. Thank you for asking me all these questions. It was nice to be able to talk with you about it.
Well, you know your stuff, and I knew that if I just asked you the right questions, that you would come up with the right answers. I just knew it. So we look forward to seeing your partner in a couple weeks, and we'll have you back again. Okay. Anytime you have anything that you want to talk about, we'd love to have you back on the show.
Great. Thank you so much, Marian.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.